Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanatahari Yamunatira Gopi Jana Vallabha Givaradha Hari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Givaradha Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamunatira Yamunatira Vanatahari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Givaradha Yashodanandana Brajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajanarandana Yamunandira Yamunatera Vanatam Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Radha Kundri Hare Radha Kundri Hare Radhe Jaya Radha Raspi Hare Radha Raspi Hare Radhe Jaya Radha Giridhari Radha Giridhari Radhe Jaya Radha Madan Mohan Radha Madan Mohan Radhe Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe Jaya Radha Gopinata Radha Gopinata Radhe Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radhe Jaya Radha Ramana Radha Ramana Radhe Jaya Radha Shyam Sundar Radha Shyam Sundar Radhe Jaya Radha Shyam Radha Shyam Radha Shyam Jaya Radha Shyam Jaya Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Anitai Gaura Haribo Haribo Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudev, Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Jaya Vishwapad, Paramahamsa Viruchaya, Sota, Santa Shishimachila, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Jaya Vishwapad, Paramahamsa Viruchaya, Sota, Santa Shishimachila, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada ki. Anantaguri Vaishnavrinda ki. Jai Shri Rup Sri Sanatan Bhattarganachi Jeev Gopal Bhattada Sarganath Sari Goswami Prabhu ki. Prem se ko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Se Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda ki. Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopa Gopi Gopinath Cham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhana ki. Vrindavan Dham ki, Mathura Dham ki, Mayapur Dham ki, Jagannathpuri Dham ki, Tulsi Maharani Bhakti Devi ki, Ganga Yamuna Devi ki, Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki, Sri Sri Gaunitai ki, Sri Sri Krishna Balaram ki, Sri Sri Radha Shama Sundar ki, Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Reading from the Bhagavad Gita as it is, 6th chapter, text number 3. ārurukṣor muner yogam karma kāraṇam ucyate yogārūḍhasya tasyaiva śamaḥ kāraṇam ucyate ārurukṣor muner yogam karma kāraṇam ucyate yogārūḍhasya tasyaiva śamaḥ kāraṇam ucyate ārurukṣor muner yogam karma kāraṇam ucyate yogārūḍhasya tasyaiva śamaḥ kāraṇam ucyate
Yogārūḍhasya
Mother. Ārurukṣor, who has just begun yoga, muner of the sage, yogam, the eightfold yoga system, karma, work, kāraṇam, the means, ucyate, is said to be, yoga, eightfold yoga, ārurukṣya, of one who has attained, tasya, his, eva, certainly, śamaḥ, cessation of all material activities, kāraṇam, the means, ucyate, is said to be. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Translation. For one who is a neophyte in the eightfold yoga system, work is said to be the means. And for one who is already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. Purport. The process of linking oneself with the Supreme is called yoga. It may be compared to a ladder for attaining the topmost spiritual realization. This ladder begins from the lowest material condition of the living entity and rises up to the perfect self-realization in pure spiritual life. According to various elevations, different parts of the ladder are known by different names. But all in all, the complete ladder is called yoga and may be divided into three parts, namely jñāna-yoga, dhyāna-yoga and bhakti-yoga. The beginning of the ladder is called the ārurukṣu stage, and the highest stage, the highest rung is called yogārūḍha. Concerning the eightfold yoga system, attempts in the beginning to enter into meditation through regulative principles of life and practice of different sitting postures, which are more or less bodily exercises, are considered fruitive material activities. All such activities lead to achieving perfect mental equilibrium to control the senses. When one is accomplished in the practice of meditation, the cessation, he ceases all disturbing mental activities. A Krishna conscious person, however, is situated from the beginning the platform of meditation because he always thinks of Krishna, and being constantly engaged in the service of Krishna is considered to have ceased all material activities. Om ajñāna-timirandhasya jñānaṁ-canasalakhaya chakṣuruṇmilitam yenam tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya-manobhistam sthapitam yena bhutale Sayam Rupa Gadāmayam Dadati Swapadantikam Bandeham Sri Guru Sri Yudhavadakamalan Sri Guran Vaishnavamscha Serupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadaitam Savadutam Parjana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vidamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Govika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastade Datta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshari Vrishabhano Sude Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivadari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Ārurukṣor muner yogam karma kāraṇam ucyate yogārūḍhasya tasyaiva śamaḥ kāraṇam ucyate. For one who is a neophyte in the eightfold yoga system, work is said to be the means, and for one who is already situated, already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. In this chapter, Krishna is explaining about dhyāna-yoga. So meditating on the Lord. Specifically here also in this chapter, so the process as explained in this verse of Ashtanga Yoga is explained. So of course Prabhupada here in the Purport is explaining basically that yoga is divided in three. The yoga process of linking with the Lord through jnana, knowledge, dhyan, that is meditation, and then through bhakti, through devotional service. Generally also there is a system known as Patanjali Yoga, which is about the eightfold process of yoga. Yam, niyam, asana, pranayam, pratyahara, dharana, dhyan and samadhi. These are the 8 stages. First of all, in the beginning stage, yam and niyam are there, some rules and regulations are there. Things which we have to follow, vidhi, and certain activities which we have to refrain from, nishedh. For example, and that is for anyone who is practicing yoga. It may be Ashtanga Yoga, as a matter of fact, or it may be jñāna-yoga, dhyāna-yoga or bhakti-yoga. But everyone has to follow some rules and regulations, otherwise there's no question of yoga. And then connecting with the Supreme Lord, engaging in making progress in spiritual life. Certain activities we have to do. For example, in the morning, early morning, one has to take a bath to purify the body. And then one has to put on fresh clothes. And then one has to engage in spiritual activities, whatever it may be, according to sadhana. It may be according to jñāna-yoga or Ashtanga Yoga or bhakti-yoga, but some sadhana, some process of engaging oneself in positive spiritual activities has to be there in order to advance, in order to realize one's position as spirit soul as being completely different from the gross and subtle material body. And one has to abstain from certain activities, especially sinful activities. And it is mentioned 4 sinful activities are there, which are quite prominent in the age of Kali, but one absolutely has to refrain from this. So that is meat eating, that is taking intoxicants, smoking, drinking, and so on. And then gambling, so wasting money in trying to play different or engage in different activities of of gambling in order to try to get more money. So that should not be done. And then lastly, illicit activities. So these are considered sinful activities, and one has to give them up completely. Besides that, some other activities are there which are not sinful, but one should also refrain from these. Of course, there are more than these 4 sinful activities, but these are the activities which are considered very detrimental for making advancement in spiritual life. But other activities which are forbidden, which are also to some extent sinful. Just like, for example, stealing. One should not steal another's property. Also, one should not lie. And one should not waste one's time in unnecessary activities, which are not giving any benefit, spiritually speaking, or even materially speaking also. So Vidya Nisheda there, and everyone has to follow who wants to make advancement in spiritual life. After that, asana is mentioned for the Ashta Anga or the Patanjali system, which is also explained as Hatha Yoga or Dhyāna-yoga here specifically. One has to sit properly in order to meditate. Even for studying, usually if one wants to study the scriptures, and then one has to be focused for that. And for that one, usually if one is studying the scriptures, one is sitting in a comfortable, maybe comfortable also. Of course, if one is old, one may sit in a chair, then may be there. But otherwise, for yoga, especially for dhyāna-yoga, for meditation, there is a sitting posture which is required, which is helpful so that one can control the mind and the senses and properly meditate. It may be known as Padmasana or Ardha Padmasana, sitting cross-legged and then sitting straight, not in a bent position. And for meditation, then the eyes should not be completely open, because otherwise there may be distraction. Also, the eyes should not be completely closed, because then otherwise there's a possibility of falling asleep if the eyes are completely closed. After that, of course, even some other postures are there, not just the sitting to meditate, but in order to keep the body healthy. It may be beneficial to do some yoga exercise to keep the body fit. So specifically in this process of dhyāna-yoga, so the yogis, they are trying to be healthy, and but they may not do so much of the physical exercise, because the main point is to meditate. But some exercise they may do. And even the yogis, so as explained, they may sit properly, and for health it is yoga, the different postures which are there, they may help. Even for devotees, all the devotees are engaged in devotional service, but they're acquiring knowledge about the Supreme Lord and how to properly serve. So acquiring knowledge is also important, so that one may be able to properly engage in devotional service. And even for the devotees, for example, for chanting attentively, it is recommended to sit properly. Even the famous japa tape is there, proper chanting japa, and in between you hear him say, sit properly. So that is helpful. And even during the class, so that one can concentrate, it is helpful to sit properly. and be focused and try to control the mind and the senses. And in order to be fit physically, because if the body is not fit, how we can serve? So doing some yoga exercise may be helpful, but it shouldn't be too much. Because our main purpose is to serve Krishna. So little yoga, there is no harm to keep the body fit, to be situated in the mode of goodness. But it should not be too much, because the main focus for the bhaktas is to serve Krishna, to engage in devotional service, to chant the holy names, to hear the scriptures, to speak about the Lord, to remember the Lord. But even Sanatana Goswami in Hari Bhakti Vilas is explaining before chanting the Gayatri mantras. The main mantra is the Maha Mantra, but Gayatri is helpful to be fixed on the Lord. And there is explaining that before chanting the Gayatri, then it may be helpful to do Achman for purification and to do pranayam, breathing. Also, for those who want to enter sannyas, of course, Prabhupada, he kept everything simple, because in the age of Kali and Western influence is there, so he kept everything simple. But it is mentioned in the Sanskar Dipika, or the process also for even entering the sannyas ashram. So different things are required to do. Taking bath in the holy river the day before, and then or even the morning, in the early morning, and then of course even before that shaving, one should be shaved, and then one should take bath, put on his cloth, and then put on tilak, and then doing one sadhana of japa, of the Maha Mantra and Gayatri, and that also is explained, one has to do pranayam, breathing, to fix the mind and the senses, to be focused. And then it is explained he should do archanam, and then he will be ready to accept the instruction of the spiritual master, will be ready to, of course, mentally already has to be prepared. He has to practice for quite some time, so he may be prepared then to actually renounce everything and then enter the renounced order of life, sannyas. And then in the ceremony, then he will receive cloth of a renunciant, and he will get the danda, the stick, the staff of renunciation, which are 3 bamboo sticks bound together with a cloth, big one, as the height of the bamboo sticks is as much as the body. And afterwards there's a small danda, a little bit curved, a small stick which is curved, and that is also attached to it. And that signifies the 3 big sticks that one should surrender body, mind, and the words in the service of the Lord. And then the small danda is known as jiva danda, signifying that the soul actually by nature is there serving Krishna. So this we can say, and we can see that that is common for all, some activities of those who want to engage in spirit life in order to make advancement. In understanding practically that I am not this body and I am spirit soul. After that, pratyahara, so that one has to control the senses. So the jnana yogis who are studying the scriptures, those who are doing ashtanga yoga, dhyāna-yoga, and the bhaktas, they have to control the senses and the mind. Withdraw from the sense objects. For example, the eyes, they want to see beautiful things. So, of course, different persons, they may have different idea of what is beautiful. Maybe somebody likes a beautiful environment, or a materialistic person likes to have a beautiful car, or new laptop, new phone. And so he sees that and is attracted with the eyes. Somebody may be attracted to the opposite sex. So then if he's seeing the objects of the senses, then for example, the eye, then is going to the object. And then he will not be able, he becomes attracted, then he cannot concentrate on the Supreme. And also with the hearing, one has to hear about the Lord. But then if some material sound is there and one is hearing about ordinary things, gramya katha, then he will not be able to focus on the Lord. And that will occupy his consciousness. And similarly, so one has to control the tongue. One has to take some prasad, and one is tasting the prasad, one has to fill the belly, but it should be controlled and not too much. If one is eating too much, then the satisfying the tongue and then the belly, and then one will not be able to actually engage in meditation or being focused in devotional service or in studying the scriptures. And one will feel sleepy, one will fall asleep. Or the mind will be agitated and attracted to material things. So therefore the senses must be controlled. And the mind has to be focused on the lotus feet of the Lord for the devotee. Those who are doing Ashtanga Yoga, they will meditate on the Super Soul, Paramatma. And those who are simply interested in empiric knowledge and trying to understand the Absolute Truth, or those who think the Absolute Truth has no form, the Brahmajyoti, they will try to simply be focused on that have to attain the Absolute Truth. And I'm spirit soul, and have to merge myself with the Absolute Truth. I have to become one. But without controlling the mind as the senses, that cannot be done. The jnana-yogi cannot do, the dhyāna-yogi cannot do, the bhakta cannot be fully absorbed in spiritual activities. So one has to withdraw the senses from the sense objects and keep them engaged in Krishna seva. And usually starting from the consciousness, the mind, but it goes twofold. So if the mind is focused on the Lord and the intelligence also trying to be choosing spiritual activities, but then if the senses are going here and there, and it is very difficult to be always controlled. Due to being under most material nature, if one is not yet completely liberated. And then very quickly the mind will be carried away if the senses are going somewhere. Then the mind will follow. So the mind and the senses, both, one has to endeavor to control both. And if the senses are engaged in the service of the Lord, but the mind is thinking of material things, then also it cannot be absorbed. So one has to try to control the mind and the senses. And that is a constant endeavor required. Constantly one has to endeavor. And if one is successful, then comes dharana. Then one can remember to some extent the Supreme Lord. But not always. When one is in a conditioned state, one is not purified in consciousness, then one cannot always remember the Supreme Lord. But if one is practicing and then engaging in spiritual activities, hearing about the Lord, then to some extent one can remember Krishna or Mahaprabhu. But it will not be constant, it is not possible. Or even those who are doing yoga, so they will meditate on Paramatma. So constant practice has to be there, and then gradually one can elevate oneself. After that comes dhyan, well, that is the stage when one is purified in consciousness, and then it becomes more easy to remember Krishna's beautiful form, Shyama Sundar, Tribhang Lalit. So bent in three places. Tribhanga, Krishna is also known as Tribhanga. And wearing a beautiful dhoti, playing the flute, having a peacock feather in the crown or the turban, or even like today, Krishna and Balarama, they are very beautiful. Anyone noticed? Beautiful dress. What is the color of the dress today? Red. So Krishna didn't have a crown today. Also no turban, but there was a top knot here. And then peacock feather is there, and here one small flower garland around the hair, the top knot. So very beautiful. So by seeing the deity, then we can remember the deities also. And so if one is purified in consciousness, then it is more easy while chanting the holy names, or even then in engaging in any activity. One can, because then the love will be there. And one has practiced, and the consciousness is purified, withdrawn from material activities, engage in spiritual activities, then it will be easier. So just like here also it is mentioned in the beginning of Ashtanga Yoga or any yoga, so one has to be engaged in some karma, some activity, because simply sitting down will not do, because the mind and senses will be going here and there if one is not purified in consciousness. Therefore, work is said to be the means, as explained here. Even those who are doing yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, in the beginning they cannot just simply sit down. Therefore, for them, they will do some exercise, the different exercise which are there in yoga practice, standing on the head, and then there's the Mayur pose, the pose of a peacock, or different bodily exercises are there, because in the beginning the yogi is not able to focus on the super soul. So he's engaging in yoga, and then of course he's doing he has to eat something also, so he has to cook something. And in the beginning, even the devotees, mostly they're eating 3 times a day, because one has to work also, and then one has to eat a little more. But then those who are more purified in consciousness, they will eat less. So real yogi will just eat once a day. Very controlled. Even usually Prabhupada, he ate once a day, in noon time. Morning time a little bit, evening time a little bit. Because we have to see time, place and circumstances. Also in the summer, you cannot even eat much. You must eat less. Otherwise you will just feel very sleepy. In the winter when it is cold, you have to eat a little more. Otherwise you feel too cold and you cannot function properly. And you may get sick due to cold. So we have to see time, place and circumstances. But in the beginning, so the practicing transcendentalist, he has to engage in some activity, because the mind and senses need to be engaged in some practical activity. So even those who are doing jñāna-yoga and dhyāna-yoga, and the bhaktas also, sadhana bhakti is there, engaging in some activity is there on the direction of the spiritual master. And afterwards, if one is more advanced, and one is doing one sadhana, and especially japa, and studying the scriptures or meditation, then one does not have to do so much physical activity. And then as explained here also in this verse, then one has to give up all material activities. One is only engaging in spiritual activities. And then one can be more absorbed If one is simply engaged in spiritual activities, if one is engaged in material activities, then he cannot concentrate on the Supreme Lord. So sometimes it appears to be that the yogi is more elevated than the bhakta. Because the yogi, when he's more advanced, he's just sitting down for many hours in one place and not doing much externally. Trying to meditate on the super soul. And the jnana yogi also is studying the scriptures and then trying to be absorbed in the absolute truth and then not doing anything. But the bhaktas, they are right at the beginning already, they are engaged in spiritual activities, in serving the Lord. And so we should understand that the bhaktas, they are most fortunate and actually they are more advanced than the others. Because ultimately, the super soul is there simply to help us so that we may be guided on the spiritual path. But we don't have an eternal relationship with the super soul because the super soul is only manifested in the material world. Super soul Paramatma, so is a manifestation of Kshirodakshay Vishnu, the third Purusha avatar, situated in everyone's heart, and his expanded form of Garbhodakshay Vishnu, who is situated in every universe, from whom a lotus flower is emanating from his lotus navel, and that on top of that lotus flower, Lord Brahma is situated, the creator, secondary creator of the world, of the planetary systems, which are situated in this lotus stem. And then Kshirodakshay Vishnu is the super soul of the whole material existence. From him all the universes are emanating. But that is only when the material world is manifested. When everything is wound up by the will of the Lord and of the material manifestation, then the super soul, the Kshirodakshay is entering Garbhodakshay, Garbhodakshay is entering Mahavishnu, and Mahavishnu is entering Mahashankarshan, who is a Vishnu Murti in Vaikuntha Loka. So the super soul is there to help us, but we don't have an eternal relationship with the super soul. And there's not much service we can do to the super soul except meditating on him. Or maybe mentally we can offer maybe some fruits. But still, ultimately, our connection is with Bhagavan, with the personality of Godhead. And then there must be some personal relationship and personal exchange. And that will be manifested by engaging in practical devotional service and in purified consciousness. Then we will realize who is our Prananath, who is our Ishtadev, who is the Lord of our life, with whom we have a relationship. It may be Vishnu, Narayan, Ramchandra Bhagavan, or Swayam Bhagavan Sri Krishna. So we are fortunate, we are in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, and we are put in this situation, and most likely our relationship will be with Krishna, and hopefully with Krishna in Braj. And that is the highest realm, is Golok Vrindavan. And as we advance in spiritual life, then so we will have inclination to serve the Supreme Lord in a personal way, as explained either with Vishnu or Narayan, Ramchandra or Dwarkadesh in Dwarka, or with Krishna and Braj. That will manifest the liking. Even we have seen some devotees in our society, although Mahaprabhu is no different from Radha Krishna and he has come to give Braj Bhakti, but some devotees, they have inclination to serve Ramchandra Bhagavan. And even some devotees, they are very inclined to worship Lakshmi Narayan. And that is all right. And they may have that relationship. their eternal relationship with Narayan or with Ram. There's one devotee here, he's also serving DT department, cleaning some vessels. He wants to go to Dwarka and he wants to worship Rukmini Dwarkadish. And he's so much attracted. He's staying here in Braj, but he wants to go to Dwarka ultimately in the spiritual world. He doesn't want to go to Golok. And he was telling me, right since he joined the movement already, and he heard about Krishna and Rukmini, and he's so much attracted to them, more than Radha and Krishna. So most likely, so he has a eternal relationship with Krishna and Dwarka. And then by advancing, the consciousness will be purified, and then he can realize his relationship with Krishna. But the majority in our society, they will have a relationship with Krishna in Braj. And that the different relationships are there, either as a friend, as a servant, or having maternal affection towards Krishna. Krishna is just like my child. Or having conjugal relationship. So that will manifest in the advanced stage of devotional service. In the beginning it is not possible. But it will come automatically by engaging in spiritual activities when the consciousness becomes purified. And then natural inclination will be there, and then in the association of the advanced devotees, then we can develop the relationship. So we have to cultivate the relationship with Krishna, just even in this material world. Relationships are there between the parents, the children, and then the children become big, and then they will have their own children, and then husband and wife, brother and sister, and then other relatives and friends, and relationship is there. But in the relationship, there is an exchange. One is giving and one is receiving. Also with Krishna. So by serving Krishna and then expressing one's love or one's, even sometimes one's feeling towards Krishna, and then trying to have actually the personal exchange with Krishna by praying to him and asking for some guidance from Krishna. So then by practicing day by day, then the relationship will slowly but surely be established, and the more become purified, the more then it becomes clear. And then ultimately, then we will realize what is actually our relationship with Krishna, and that is the goal of life. So it is a gradual process, and with the guidance of the spiritual master, so the relationship is there already with Krishna, but it is covered. And the spiritual master is helping the disciple to purify his consciousness. And he's helping the disciple so he may not be sidetracked. And so he may not be deviated, because the material energy is very strong. So therefore we need all the help. Simply alone it will be difficult, but we need the protection of the spiritual master, of the Lord ultimately. We need the guidance. So with proper guidance it will be easier to advance. But ultimately the most important thing is our endeavor. The spiritual master is guiding, is showing the path. He's showing where to go and how to go there, to Golok. But the main thing is actually our sincere and serious endeavor. And then we may attain perfection. So constant practice has to be there, engagement in devotional activities, and one has to give up material activities. So that is mentioned here in this verse and in the purport also. Hare Krishna. Any question? Everything very clear. One question? Yes. 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 Yes, the highest that is actually Krishna Prem. But even before Krishna Prem, there is Bhav Bhakti. When one is realized, practical realization is there of our constitutional position as an eternal servant with Krishna in a particular relationship. So different stages are there. First one has to have faith in the process, then one is accepting a spiritual master, sadhu sangha, and then one is engaging in spiritual activities, bhajana kriya, then one becomes free from unwanted things, anarthas, then one can be fixed. When one is fixed, nishtha, then one is not engaged in material activities. And one is engaged in spiritual activities, and one has a taste also for engaging in spiritual activities, and no taste for material activities. In the beginning, there's still a taste for material activities, sense gratification, and less taste for spiritual activities. But when one is fixed, one is more advanced, one has a taste, ruchi for spiritual activities, and no taste for material activities. Then one becomes attached to Krishna and detached from the material world. Afterwards, when one is attached to Krishna, one is realizing practically that I'm a spirit soul. And then from the soul, our spiritual identity, then the transcendental emotion will come. And with this transcendental emotion, then we serve Krishna and there's a loving exchange. That is Bhav Bhakti. And then, so at that point, Prem is slowly but surely manifested, but not fully. It is known as Prem Ankur. Just like if you have a plant, it is just sprouting. But it is very small, Ankur. Small plant is there, but then it has to grow. Similarly, when one is on the platform of Bhav, one is realized, I'm the servant of Krishna. Even one's relationship, I'm a friend of Krishna. So the realization is there. And at that time, because the consciousness is pure, then the love will manifest. But still it is not fully blossomed love. It is just the beginning. But then when one is giving up the body, so that stage is known Sarup Siddhi, realizing of one's Sarup. And then after giving up the body, one will go to one of Krishna's Leela in one of the universes where he performs his Leela. And then one will last time take a birth from a womb of a gopi, and then the spiritual existence will be there. Our spiritual body will be there. In Sarup Siddhi we realize our body, but we are not engaged in the service of Krishna. We may see Krishna's pastimes, but we are not engaged in Krishna seva yet. But we know what is our relationship, but we are not engaged in seva. But when we give up the body and enter the place where Krishna performs his pastimes, then in the association of the eternal associates, we get a chance to serve Krishna. And that is known as Vashtu Siddhi. Yes, and then when he's serving Krishna, it is loving exchange, then full prem will be there. So, but yogārūḍhasya, that is the advanced stage when one is realizing that I'm not this body, I'm spirit soul. And then love will manifest to some extent, but not fully. Okay? Yes?
Generally when we look into Vedas, there are certain sacrifices that is recommended for everybody to advance in certain stages. But when it comes to Vaishnava way, generally all the mantras and whatever it is correlated towards the Vaishnavas and even the demigods who are Vaishnavas and ultimately to the Lord. So, which is mentioned in Satriya Saradhika. But how is it like our acharyas could give such an information which is completely different from the Vedic style? Is it still okay? How to contemplate that?
Well, whatever our acharyas have given, so it is not, you cannot say it is completely different from the Vedas. Because Veda means knowledge, actually spiritual knowledge. But the Vedas which were first given, the 4 Vedas are there, and then different branches are there, and so in essence even there, actually the essence is there. But because not everyone is able to immediately adopt the process of pure devotional service, for example, Karma Kanda is there. There's a Karma Kanda section of the Vedas for those who are materially inclined. So they will be, it is recommended for them to follow some rituals, but in the rituals there, the yagyas or whatever, then the goal is still also to offer to Vishnu. But then the result will be there, so one can live happily in this world and enjoy some sense gratification, dharma, and then artha. One is doing dharma by following karma kanda also, and then one will get some benefit. Kam, then one can get some sense gratification. But then ultimately one has to give it up, and then one can go to the path of moksha or mukti. But then in devotional service, actually it is more focused and the essence is given more clearly. In the literatures, for example, of the 6 Goswamis, the followers of Mahaprabhu, that is the essence of the Vedic literatures. Like for example, even the 4 Vedas are there, which is very vast, and Karma Kanda, so is a big part is there, and so many mantras are there, and not always aiming at the Supreme Lord completely. But then the Vedanta Sutra is there, the essence. And there it is divided in 3 parts, and that is the Sambandha Gyan. We have to know our relationship with Krishna, and Krishna is the Supreme, or Vishnu or Ram, and we are not this body, we are spirit soul, and we have a relationship with the Supreme Lord. And then Abhideya is there, the process. 2nd or 3rd part of Vedanta Sutra is about Abhideya, the process of devotional service. And the 4th part, that is Prayojan, when one is purified in consciousness and one is engaged in pure devotional service. So instruction in that regard are given. But then even it is quite vast, and it is so not easy to understand for the common man. So therefore the Srimad Bhagavatam has been presented, which is the essence practically of the Vedanta Sutra also. And the explanation of the Gayatri. Gayatri is also mantra to help us to be focused on the Lord. But then we need some explanation how to practically then serve the Lord. And in the Bhagavatam it is there. Different Gayatris are there. Gayatri for Vishnu, for Narayan, for Ram, for Krishna, for Mahaprabhu, for Nityananda, for Balaram, for Radharani. So we can focus. But then practically how we have to serve, that we have to know also. And that is explained in the Bhagavatam. And so of course there about the different incarnations are there, because not everyone will be a servant of Krishna. But Krishna is Swayam Bhagavan, the original source of all incarnations. And therefore the Summum Bonum, the Ashray, that is actually the 10th canto. And about Krishna's pastimes in Braj, Mathura and Dwarka. And of course Krishna is always perfect. In Dwarka is perfect, but in Mathura is more perfect, and in Braj is most perfect and complete. And is the actual source of all. Swayam Bhagavan Sri Krishna in Braj, and he has so many wonderful qualities which even Mathuresh or Dwarkadish doesn't have. What to speak of Narayan or even Ram. Unsurpassed beauty, Rupa Madhurya. And when Krishna is playing the flute, Dwarkadish is not playing the flute, Ramchandra is not playing the flute. And Krishna is playing so wonderful, attracting everyone in Braj. So sweet. Krishna is sweet, his flute playing is sweet, everything is sweet about Krishna. Unparalleled. And then his lila, his pastimes are more beautiful than pastimes of Ram. or Dwarkadish or Narayan, much more beautiful and intimate. And then also the prem, the loving exchange. In Vaikuntha, even in Dwarka, there is some own reverence, who is the Lord. When own reverence is there, then the relationship is not so confidential. It cannot be fully sweet. Sweetness is there, love is there, but it is not because of the Aishwarya Bhav, that he is the supreme. It cannot be so sweet. But in Braj, there is no Aishwarya Bhav that Krishna is the Lord. He is my best friend. He is my beloved. So the exchange is very intimate, very sweet, and most wonderful. So that is there, so that is explained in the 10th canto. But then even to understand that, we need the mercy of Mahaprabhu. And that is then explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita, through the life of Mahaprabhu, his talks with Rai Ramananda Roy, and others also, speaking to Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and then giving the essence for us, Braj Bhakti, and then even the highest Unujjala Ras, that is the Gopi Bhav. So that has been given, so ultimately it is part of the Vedic literatures. In, for example, Padma Purana is there, the 18 Puranas. Even there about Krishna, the gopis, about Radharani, it is mentioned to some extent. But then so many other things are explained. Whereas in the literatures of the Goswamis, the focus is just on Radha Krishna mainly, in Braj. And hardly anything about Vishnu or Narayan or Ram. Because we have to be focused in order to attain the goal. Very much focused. So, but we cannot say it is not part of the Vedic literatures. It is part of the Vedic literatures, ultimately. It is actually the essence of the Vedic literatures. So, but in beginning there is only a hint about that, about Krishna and Braj, about the loving sentiments of the Brijbasis. By Mahaprabhu's mercy, it fully manifested. Even Krishna was there 5,000 years ago, and he performed his pastimes just to attract the conditioned souls, and then he spoke Bhagavad Gita, just so people can understand we are not a body, we are spirit, soul, and we have to surrender to Krishna. But Krishna in Mathura, Dwarka is not, he's thinking about Krishna and Braj, and also sometimes expressing that, but he's not telling how to be engaged in that relationship. And Krishna and Braj is just enjoying his pastimes with his associates. But then Mahaprabhu is showing how to approach Krishna and Braj by adopting the mood of the eternal associates, the gopis, the gopas, Maria Yashoda, Nanda Baba. Mahaprabhu has shown, and then through the disciples, the followers, the 6 Goswamis and their disciples up to Prabhupada, then it is practically shown how to actually engage in devotional service in order to attain Yashodanandan, Gopinath. Okay? So that is actually the essence of the Vedic literatures. The literatures of the 6 Goswamis. And they have been manifested by Mahaprabhu's mercy. Okay, last question.
Second paragraph, from the last and second sentences, all such activities lead into achieving perfect mental equilibrium to control the senses. Mental equilibrium, how it helps to control the senses?
Mental equilibrium, how, yes, when the mind is equiposed, when the mind is fixed on Krishna's lotus feet, when the mind is fixed on Krishna's beautiful form, in the service of Krishna, then automatically the senses will also be engaged and they will not go here and there. But still we have to try to control, but if one is fully absorbed in consciousness, when the mind is not going here and there, it is more easy to be focused. But still we have to try to control the senses also. Otherwise they will pull the mind away. But if one is advanced and purified in consciousness, there's no chance that the senses will go here and there. In purified consciousness, one is then beyond the material world actually. One is engaged naturally in spiritual activities. That is mental equilibrium. The mind is not going here and there. The mind is focused on Krishna's lotus feet, on Krishna's beautiful form. The mind is focused in Krishna, thinking about Krishna, His qualities, pastimes, Krishna service, only thinking about that. And then automatically senses are engaged in devotional activities. And there's no chance they will go out. Okay? Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki. So it's prasadam. If anybody wants, you can come and get some prasad. Hare Krishna.